welcome today. It's great to be here again on a Tuesday afternoon, and I'm so excited to have a chat with Tony. Is it Restell or is it Restell? Just want to make sure.
Either one is fine. I've heard
Tony
both.
Restell. I first met, quote unquote, Tony in John Esperian's group, and we've had lots and lots of conversations over time in the group, just messaging. And I always like to talk to people in person or online and get a sense of really more about what they're looking to do. And that was really one of the goals of the things that I did when I set up here. And, Tony had his expertise with the small business owners, and we decided to talk about that in some ways. And one of the things, and I work with small businesses, but probably not to the level that you do, Tony. And I come across some of the same challenges you do. And the first thing I come across is what we talked about is a lot of small businesses don't even have a strategy per se as to what they want to do. They just think they're going to go on LinkedIn, they're going to post and comment or and it never happens. And one thing is I have found some businesses actually are better on a different platform as the main one. So that's the first question I'm going to ask is like, are you sure you want to even be here? Let's kind of talk that way. And do you have some similar conversations there?
Yeah, I mean, it's always starting point with any business is what is the audience that you want to reach and win business from or partner with, or whatever your outcome is that you want to drive, and then where are you best off engaging those people? And we do a lot of B2B work, so for us LinkedIn is an obvious place to spend time, but for other businesses it might not be LinkedIn at all. It could be somewhere else.
Absolutely. I think one of the challenges I work with, and I don't know if you work in the same space, I have a lot of single people that are just starting out a business. They may have just lost their job or they've been doing consulting on the side. They want to build a business up. And I also work with people from the Chamber of Commerce. They have small businesses as well. And they don't understand the power of LinkedIn. They know they have to have a profile. They know they have to have a company page, but they don't realize how much engagement is important. Or what I like to suggest is look at what your other clients are doing, or look at what your other businesses are doing. Do the investigative research. I mean, are those some of the things that you come across too?
Yeah, I mean, that is so important because you've got to have a strategy on whether it's LinkedIn or broader social media, but it also needs to be the right strategy. It needs to be the strategy that is proven to work in whatever, sector it is that you serve. And depending on what your business is and what your customer base is and what you need to drive as outcomes, that could call for a totally different strategy. So really important to get that right from the outset. Interestingly, so obviously we work with loads of businesses and I've got loads of experience of what works, but we've been interviewing business owners over the last several weeks.
You mentioned
to find out about, what their experience has been with social media and what kind of results they've been getting. And yeah, we've done probably 100 of those across the team. And some of the biggest problems we're unearthing are that people don't have a strategy, or they've been sold on the wrong strategy. And, there are a lot of people on LinkedIn, for example, who are, out evangelizing about how important it is to get mass visibility and huge engagement and, as much reach as you can for yourself. But actually, depending on what your business does, that may or may not be something that's going to lead to success. And I think it's really important to be clear on that, from the outset.
So I'd love to see who is joining us today. Feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat, because I know a lot of people expressed an interest in this. And I know you said something which is very important which is about having a strategy. And the numbers don't mean everything. Sometimes it's going to be a hit or miss thing, but you have to know what you're looking to do. I've worked with people that have had to change their strategy multiple times because different people have said different things to them. And sometimes it's knowing who the right people are to actually talk to about this. Because you mentioned there's lots of people out there that talk about strategy. And my biggest struggle now is dealing with all those that promise with the automation. I'm going to send out all these mass emails for you, or I'm going to get you all these leads, or I'm going to get you this and that. And you know what I'm talking about. And it's like, that's not a strategy.
No. I would really encourage people to think about whether they are a very niche business or whether they sell to the masses. And depending on what the answer to that is, that calls for a very different approach to what you do on social media. So if you imagine you go to, a sports stadium, you go to a football stadium, and let's imagine that you could talk to every single spectator as they go into the stadium, or you could hand them a flyer about your business. Would that result in your business being seen by loads of the right clients, or would most of the people that go into that stadium actually not be that relevant for your business? Now, depending what your business does, either of those could be the right answer. If you sell something to the mass audiences, then you being able to reach everyone in that stadium could be fantastic. But if you sell something that's niche, then you having conversations with all the people in that stadium would be, pretty much a waste of your time, because hardly any of them would be relevant for your business. And I relate that to LinkedIn and this chase to get ourselves seen as much as possible. If you are a business that sells to a very small segment, a particular niche market, you don't need to reach, the whole platform. Actually, you probably could build a community of a few hundred people, a few hundred decision makers who are exactly the people who would buy your company's services. And that's probably all you need to do to be successful on LinkedIn or whichever other social platform you invest your time in. But so I think a lot of the problems that certainly we've uncovered from these calls we've been doing over the last weeks are businesses that are really niche, but that have ended up chasing this dream of getting mass visibility and virality on LinkedIn, and that not translating into really much of anything in terms of them getting business wins. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is small businesses are kind of caught by what they see is out there, and if they may do Googling on things, or they may not even know where to start. And I know I'll speak from Chamber of Commerce experience here. There are things that our chamber does that absolutely frustrate me, because they don't know what the benefits are of doing other things. Perfect example. One of our chambers, they do something. They have a lunch or a breakfast, and it's like a speed networking thing where you go from person to person for 2 or 3 minutes, and you go to place and place and you talk. It's not beneficial. But it's from the chamber's perspective, it's their way of getting people interested. And I think sometimes less is better. And that's where I kind of talk about that from a small business perspective. All it takes is one client. All it takes is one phone call. All it takes is one thing, as opposed to lots.
Yeah. I mean, would you rather sit down for a meal in a restaurant with 10 of your ideal clients around the table,
right,
or would you like to go and present a massive expo, but the hall is full of people that mostly aren't your clients? For most businesses, it will be much more beneficial to just focus your efforts in on that, that restaurant meal and just talking to those 10 people, but having a much richer conversation with them.
So do you think it's important, because I get this question a lot, people that are small business owners, they have a company page and they want to use a company page for certain types of engagement, but they also have their own individual profile. And I know you have to do them 2 different ways. Do you have any thoughts about the pros and cons of a company page versus not a company page, if it's not part of a strategy?
So let me answer that by saying, for niche businesses, I would usually see 3 things that you've got to get right to get results.
Okay.
And this ties into the importance of personal versus company pages. So you've got to be able to grow the right audience so that you have, more of your ideal clients exposed to you and connected to you or following. you've then got to win them over. So, you know, you've got to take someone from not knowing that much about you to, you know, they know, like, and trust you. They think you're expert at what you do. And that comes down to, you know, what you're posting and how much that gets seen by the right people. But then the third thing is converting. You know, if you just post on LinkedIn or any other social platform and you wait for people to come to you wanting to do business with you, that's going to be a very long wait.
Right.
You know, and over the course of a year, you're going to get a tiny trickle of interest compared with if you much more proactively find ways to convert people into something happening. And that could be, you know, they join a webinar that you're presenting. It could be you hop on a LinkedIn video call together.
Right.
To bring that back to your question, though, company pages can only do certain things, and personal profiles can do a lot more than that. So if you're wanting to run, you know, webinars or business events and invite people along to them through LinkedIn, well, your ability to invite them is a function of your personal profile and how many of the right connections you've got there. Whereas a company page can't invite people to those events, for example. Or if you want to have private messaging to get, you know, a conversation underway with people, a company can't do that. I know LinkedIn's just introduced direct messages on company pages, but that's only to respond to people who've approached the company. You can't proactively approach someone who's in someone's network. So, so both are worth having, but I would definitely sink most of your effort into the personal profiles of the key people in your business.
And I would also say, I've told this to a lot of other people, sometimes the best way to start is to engage on other posts, find content that's relevant specifically to what you want to do as a means to introduce yourself. If you're really afraid of where to start, I'm a big believer in doing LinkedIn as a search engine. Do a search for content, do a search for different search parameters, and then find things from there, because LinkedIn does not make it easy for us to find our previous posts and searches. I know you can download them and all that, but again, people just don't know where to start. So I say, go to someone else's content and start the conversation there, or continue it and find people there that are of a like mind. Is that something that you would recommend too?
Yeah, I mean, I love the content search on LinkedIn and I love bookmarking content searches. So take the time to set up a few of them, and then get those bookmarked, and then literally any time in the week that you're going to invest in trying to engage with people on LinkedIn, don't go to the homepage, go to your content searches, and then you're engaging with the type of content that's most valuable for you, or the key contacts that you're wanting to, you know, invest your time warming up.
See, I also bookmark a lot of people on my Google bookmarks, and I have them in different categories and different folders, because LinkedIn does not make it easy, as we all know, to find people right away. So that's just, but it's taken time to figure out who I want to be in those bookmarks. I want to have a strategy, and part of that strategy, I also say, is to refine your feed. You know, refine your feed in the best way possible. There are ways you can kind of train LinkedIn to give you different content in the feed. And the more you do that, the better, for sure. Just
to pick up on that, because I've encountered over the last week a lot of LinkedIn experts that don't know this exists. So if you, rather than bookmarking individuals' pages, if you go to the content search on LinkedIn, you can now add 20 or 30 people whose content you want to see, and you just bookmark that one search, and then every day you open up that page and it shows you the latest posts from those 20 or 30 people all in one place.
Yeah, I think Kevin Turner kind of brought it to my attention a little while ago.
Yeah.
And I it took me a while to figure out how to do that, honestly, because sometimes it's not intuitive and linked, you know, but that's what's great about that. Even the idea that we learn and share it from each other. And I do a lot of my content. I actually have like 30 or 40 people in some different group messages, kind of similar to what we have, because those are people that are just, it's just great to engage that way. Groups used to be great. Groups not as much anymore. So this becomes like a quasi micro group, if you will. That's how I look at it.
Yeah.
So again, I'm looking here at some of the comments. Linda Brubaker, using LinkedIn as a search engine is a great way to find posts to engage with, which I do
Absolutely.
not agree with more. Meryl Cass, one of my Jersey person. Yes, the Thanksgiving photo. What I'm going to say here, which I don't share too much on LinkedIn, is this past Thanksgiving weekend, I actually did karaoke. I did karaoke with the family, and it is. I was happily embarrassed, but not enough to actually put it on LinkedIn that way. But it was something off my bucket list to just do something I hadn't done before. And even from a company standpoint, you got to try things that you have to get out of your comfort zone sometimes if it makes a difference.
Yeah.
Or try things that may or may not work. It's not just about the same old, same old.
Completely agree.
So what are some of the challenges now? The main challenges that you find are they the same as always with small companies that we've kind of worked around? Do you find that now things are a little different now that people have come back to the office or meeting in person, or has it not really changed as much?
I wouldn't say that has changed so much. I think one of the biggest challenges at the moment is making sure that anytime you're messaging anyone on LinkedIn, that you're not coming across as someone who's pitching. Because you were talking about the automation of messages and stuff earlier. Definitely the volume of spam that we're all getting on LinkedIn in particular, has gone up very significantly over the last couple of years. And so you really want to be careful in the message wording when you're messaging someone out of the blue to try and make something happen, that it doesn't come across as a sales pitch at all. Because you'll find that even if it's not a sales pitch, if there's any possibility that it could read like a sales pitch, it could be construed that way, even if that wasn't your intention. So I think that's certainly a challenge in not just small businesses, but any business where the key people in the business, their time is very valuable in other aspects of their business. Just making the time to consistently do what needs to be done is an ongoing challenge. We do a lot of work with professional services firms, and you have what's called the feast and famine cycle there, where people are flat out delivering on client work and feasting, but during that time they really dwindle the amount they're doing on LinkedIn or anywhere else. And then all of a sudden client projects come to an end. They've now got time available, and it's the famine because they haven't been doing what they needed to be doing in the the months leading up to that.
And sometimes it's not having scheduled things in advance. I mean, you can't just do it as a one-off. I actually did a post a while ago about some suggested ideas for content. If you're not sure what you want to do, have them in the pipeline. Doesn't mean you have to post them right away. I have ideas that are probably never going to see the light of day, but I have them as backup because it's important to engage. Now, how often I engage and how I engage has changed over time, as we all know. What I really wish LinkedIn would do on my wonderful LinkedIn wish list, which is nothing like John Experience, I wish they would give me the opportunity when I flag something as spam or whatever it is, for them to actually, LinkedIn, to acknowledge that it is what it is. I mean, I don't report things. I just block things now because I know Kevin would disagree with me about this, but it just seems like a fool's errand just to keep reporting.
Yeah. What I have been championing, and I would love to see them adapt, is a spam score. I would love it that you get however many strikes in a month, 10 strikes, and once you've had 10 strikes, then you can't send any more messages for the rest of the month.
Well, how about instead of a social selling index, have a spam index? So instead of like an SSI, an SPI or something like that, that would be really cool.
But then the people who are just aimlessly messaging completely unsuitable people or being overly pitchy, they would essentially be cut off from being able to do that anymore. But the people who are using the platform, more responsibly and, trying to do the right things, they wouldn't be impacted. And I would love to see LinkedIn adopt that.
I'd love to see LinkedIn have a layer of people like us, and I've talked to John about this, experts or consultants that are happy to help and support with with some understanding. Like there used to be way back when there used to be a LinkedIn Help Center that was actually managed by people. I don't know if you remember that back then. You could ask questions in the group and people would actually chat and be able to chat amongst themselves. And it became out of hand then because LinkedIn started adding scores to the number of people that were commenting. So people were commenting just for the sake of commenting. You know, it's like, congratulations, I've done 100 comments, even if those like, I agree or something.
Yeah.
But I think that's I don't know. We all have a love-hate with LinkedIn. And I say this is the caveat. LinkedIn, if you're listening, I love you guys to death. But so go ahead.
I was just going to say, Kenneth, one of the things I find people struggle with the most is figuring out how to actually get results from social media without just directly approaching someone to make a sale. And I bump up against this all the time. And people's natural instinct is to say, oh, you know, could we just message people to see if they've got some jobs that we could work on? Or could we just message them to see if they're looking for, you know, a new website redesign right now? And, you know, if you've had any exposure to businesses, you'll know that if they go down that route, you get almost nothing from it. It's the equivalent of spam email. You know, right. If you send enough spam email, at some point, someone must say yes to it. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a business in sending spam email. And it's kind of the same with those kinds of LinkedIn messages. Someone must say yes eventually, but you have so much more in terms of business wins if you just find reasons to approach people that aren't a direct sales pitch, but that do get you some quality time with them. And that's when that's when business relationships are formed and when you really start picking up client wins. So I challenge everyone who's watching this to just have a think about that and think about, you know, what could you do? I'll give you an example. In most industries, you see businesses, not very many, but businesses that have launched some kind of podcast or video interview. And people think, oh, that's so that they have great content and they get loads of subscribers who are going to see that content. But actually, the biggest reason for doing that is it gives you a really great reason to approach people and get an initial call. Hey, you know, I'm doing a series of video interviews and I'm interviewing business owners about this or that. Any chance we could jump on a quick call and I can talk you through it and we can see if we could get you on as a guest? You know, that gets you a ton of Zoom call time with your ideal clients where, you know, invariably they'll ask you about your business and what it is you do. And a portion of those will turn into people wanting to know a lot more about your business and how it could help them. But if you approach those same people with, oh, you know, could we have a meeting for me to tell you about what our company does? You know, you just get nothing. So yeah, really challenge people to change their thinking there around what your conversion approach is going to be. And usually the less direct approach is actually far more effective.
Definitely. Even listening in general, like I try to be a good listener about when other people are talking and things and not trying to interrupt them, which I did a lot of, unfortunately, when I was in job search. I couldn't wait to get the next question out or answer out. But you have to listen to what their needs are. You have to listen to what they're looking for and not always reply back quickly. Because sometimes you just have to think. Sometimes you can wait. You can actually wait a day or two or a week sometimes. There's no rush sometimes. Less is better.
Yeah. Yeah, and the more desperate you seem, that impacts how people perceive you and the value of your services.
So the one question that a lot of people ask me all the time is, from a business perspective, is how much free do I give away before it's not free anymore? Like, to get in terms of promotion, do I offer something for free to get their attention? Then does that become a sales thing? Or am I going right off the bat with maybe a discount or a rate? Or, I mean, that may be part of the strategy of things you talk about. I don't know. But those are some of the questions that I get.
I don't like free.
Okay.
Historically, and sorry, let me qualify that. I give away a ton of value and insights for nothing. So
Right.
I'm a big believer in helping people, do webinars that help them, put out videos, PDFs that help them. All that's great. But if someone wants one-on-one time with you, I'm not a fan of offering that for free, because historically I've found that tends to produce people booking in for that free time who aren't particularly good prospects and who don't have the money to actually engage your services. And I think the days of free gated content where you're giving away something in exchange for, you filling in a form with your email address and job title and stuff, for me, that's old now. I just don't think people are so used to being able to pick this stuff up for free on LinkedIn in a PDF post. You're really reticent to hand over that, registration details. So, so that's my take. But that's different to you giving people free time on your terms.
Okay.
So
Right.
if I'm getting people onto a call to talk about, a report we're producing, and I'd love to spend some time with you on that, or whatever it might be, then someone's jumping on a call with you. There's no, exchange of money, but it's not an expectation that you're going to give them huge amounts of value for nothing, and that they then don't value your time.
So what about the idea of bartering? So do you believe in companies should barter for each other's services as part of that arrangement, or are you, again, I'm curious because I don't have one specific answer, but I get these questions a lot from other people about, do I barter so that helps both of us, but then again, neither of us get anything financial.
Yeah, again, I'm not well, if you're totally a startup and you're really short of funds, then sure, if you can find, a barter that works for you, then great. I think the trouble with that is you end up taking on services that you might not have chosen to take on if you'd had to pay for them. And you end up staying with them for longer than you would have done if you were having to pay for it. So you end up skewing your business in ways that are actually not that beneficial.
So in terms of, let's talk about some successes that you've had. When you work with small business owners, what are some of the successful small business owners doing that you've seen? Because that would also be just as helpful as what not to do.
Yeah, and this is where I would say try and get some input from a specialist in the kind of market that you work in. So I can give you some great examples from the types of businesses we work with, but equally there are businesses out there we've never worked with that kind of business, and I wouldn't know exactly how to get results for them. And so you need to go and get advice from someone who has already done this in that space, so that you don't end up being taken down, a blind alley. But yeah, kinds of things that, we've seen professional services firms do. So they'll run business breakfasts or networking drinks events or launch events for thought leadership papers that they're releasing, reports they're releasing. And then they'll get people along to those events through LinkedIn and other social media. And that then turns, the time they're investing into social media into, they've now got huge numbers of their ideal clients that they and their team have got FaceTime with at an event they're organizing. So that's, an example of converting audience that you've built on social media into something much more tangible. Or you could have tech platforms, B2B tech platforms that get a whole load of people onto a Zoom call to walk through the platform with them and see how it works. Recruitment businesses, getting on calls with businesses who have a need to make hires at the moment, who are struggling with certain open positions, getting people onto those kinds of calls, or in times when candidates are in short supply, and jobs are plentiful, getting candidates registered with you so that you have more candidates you're able to place. These are the kinds of outcomes that if you work with a business that knows how to do that, or you've got a consultant, or you've employed someone into your business that's done this before for another business, then you can leapfrog and get those results quickly. But just to finish that, Kenneth, we turn a lot of business away each year because we'll get inquiries from businesses that aren't the types of businesses that we work with. And whilst we could do a professional job for them with their social media, we would spend the first 6 months just experimenting and trying to find out how do we get successful conversions for this business, because we don't know.
Right.
And I would always say in that scenario, there's another agency out there that already works with businesses like yours that could accelerate the pace at which you're going to get results by all those months that we would spend experimenting.
Sure.
So much better that you go out and find the experts who can give you that insight from day one.
So just to go back, a couple of people love the idea of the spam index. For those that are just joining the call now, we talked about LinkedIn has an SSI, a social selling index. We thought it'd be great to have a spam index for different people and different companies so that it could be rated. Now, how it would determine, I'm not sure, but since we never are successfully able to report something to spam, as spam, maybe that's the mechanism to come up with some algorithm, to use that word again and again, that determines what is spammy. Because I think the more I think about it, the more it's like, why doesn't anyone do that? I mean, even with when you send out emails, you get a percentage based on how much with a service. If you get a certain amount flagged as spam, then you're not going to be able to send more emails out. And there's a formula for that. And I don't know if it's the same in England, but there should be some sort of a formula based on some analysis as to when it is spam, whether it's a message or a connection request or something, I would think.
Well, Kenneth, that exists, and there's a funny story behind that. Okay. So LinkedIn already have their own spam filtering and put things in the other inbox rather than the main inbox. What's funny about that is if you send someone LinkedIn's own Sales Navigator referral message, where a Sales Navigator user, you can gift 2 months of free Sales Navigator use to other people on the platform. The message that LinkedIn sends out on your behalf that they have written goes straight to spam on LinkedIn.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I mean, I find myself learning so much from everyone on this platform because I only know what I know and I'm comfortable. And that brings up from a small business. If I don't have the answer to something, I'm not going to bluff my way and say I know the answer to it. I mean, I'll find someone that knows the answer, like you alluded to before, but I'm not an all-in-one that can do everything. And if I don't know the answer, I won't bluff. I would much rather say I can't do this. And sometimes saying no is just as important as saying yes, because you get a little more credibility that way.
Absolutely.
So I see also joining us from Detroit is Brenda Meller.
Good to have you on, Brenda.
Brenda, good as well. I think one of the things that I miss more than anything else, what I don't miss about going in-person networking events is being pitched right away. It's from a mile away. I'm in there, and right away, I've got people down my neck. And it gets so frustrating that you just wonder, what are they teaching or not teaching? And I don't know, maybe it's just the way I was brought up. I mean, I'm an introvert as it is, and I would rather not be bothered right away, but I'm happy to have a conversation in time.
Yeah, definitely.
So what I'm noticing in the chat is I'm noticing that the comments are coming a little bit late, a little bit lagging, a little more than usual. Because Scott just said, I have bartered where I discounted my services, but they didn't discount theirs, which is extremely true. And that also brings up the next thing. How does a company determine how much they're going to charge for what they do? What is the determination that if a company is doing X, is X enough, or should it be X doubled, or should it be X less? I mean, do you help them with that as part of a strategy as to what they should charge for what they do, or is that kind of something?
No. We plug into what a business already does,
Right.
and help them generate more interest in what they already do. If they've already got a sales process in place, we'll try and dovetail with that. So, if a
Right.
consulting firm already gets people along to business breakfasts each quarter, we'll help them take that from 20 people are at your business breakfast to 50 people are at your business breakfast, or you're now running them monthly rather than quarterly. But yeah, we won't usually be involved in helping a business actually figure out what its business offering should be.
But they have to figure that out as part of the process, because otherwise that just shoots them in the foot too, because that's one of the challenges. They assume one thing and it's not the other thing.
Absolutely. I think I don't think companies are at the point where they will pay someone else to do their marketing for them if they haven't already got, a viable service or product that people are already paying for. So they tend to, by the time they get to us, they tend to have already ironed out, what the offering is and have a good client base, and, know how many inquiries they need to get to make a sale, for example.
It's like, for me, people ask me all the time about SEO and building a website. I can tell you the functional aspects of a website. I mean, but getting into the weeds with SEO and analytics and things, I know people who do it a lot better than me. I can look at it and I can figure it out, but I'm not an expert, and I won't ever attempt to be that. And I think that's what I find a lot of the content. People say they're experts in everything. It is impossible to be an expert in everything. I don't care how good you are.
Well, we all discover this every day, Kenneth, when we learn from other LinkedIn trainers and experts and agency owners something about the platform that we didn't know, or that's changed that we didn't know about. So, that's just a very simple example of that principle. Yeah. Even if you're expert in something, there's always more you could learn.
Well, I mean, I posted in the group today that my views were not doing well, and I wasn't getting a lot of engagement. I wasn't upset so much because I was getting the right engagement, but I was just curious if anyone else has seen the numbers go down. I mean, because maybe it's just me, and we don't know how this whole platform works. We don't know who's seeing what, and we don't know the why. So all you can do is just go along for the ride sometimes.
Yeah. I think this week in particular, the stats are actually very wonky, very off.
They're not good at all. They're not, and maybe it's because people are away. Maybe it's not. Maybe they're. I remember when I was at UPS this time of year, we would never put anything into production on purpose, because I worked at UPS, and the reason was if systems went down when you were trying to do the delivery and the shipping, all heck would break loose. So you didn't do anything. That first week in January was like our time to do anything and everything. We would be talking now about strategy, and I really wish LinkedIn was. I hope they're thinking that way, and I hope it's just not the right people there. But then again, there's a whole different discussion about the fact that LinkedIn doesn't even have a separate staging area to even test this stuff.
Yeah.
Which I wish they did have, but they don't. But that's a whole. I love you, LinkedIn. Going to say that again. No, because a couple of people I know have actually put the trademark on their name there, because they're just. That's the other thing. I wish people wouldn't call themselves LinkedIn experts in everything. And so I think I would end the call by saying, we got to get that spam index going. We got to make that a mission for 2024. We got to really push this. For the other stuff is not good, but a spam index would be amazing. And you have a cutoff at some point. Not just going to the other folder, not just going block and reported 5 people, whatever. You just whatever the mechanism is.
Yeah. I honestly don't think it's that complicated either.
It's not complicated
to implement it.
No, because I think about the way you determine a certain percentage of people with email marketing that are spam based on feedback or anything else. So maybe if X amount block out of a percentage you're sending, whatever it is. I mean, I'm not going to do LinkedIn's work for them, but Tony, I want to thank you very much for the conversation today. And I'm going to go back and look at the chat and the comments later on today. And I want to thank all of you for attending as we end the month of November. Stay safe. And I know you don't celebrate Thanksgiving there. I know that, but I'm going to wish you a best holiday season. And I look forward to continued chats in our messaging And have a great day, everyone.
Thanks for having me on.
Yep. Yeah, so it's this. Okay, sounds good. Okay.